The United States wasn't unified by shared ideals, it was unified by shared debt. This is about how a bankrupt collection of 13 colonies became the world's first nation built on public debt. And it starts with a financial catastrophe so complete it nearly killed America before America even existed. But this is not the story about inflation. It's about what happened after money failed and why the solution wasn't money at all. 1775 to 1776. War has already begun. The Continental Congress becomes the de facto central government, but no power to tax. No gold or silver reserves, no national bank, no stable fiscal revenue. The only way to finance the revolution was to print money, continental currency. This money had no tax backing, no metal backing, no bank backing, only belief that the revolution would succeed and the currency would retain any value. Worse still, the 13 states never stopped printing their own currencies. But war collapsed trade, devastated agriculture, and shattered tax collection. The states themselves were already near bankruptcy. A bankrupt state had no incentive to spend its last real tax resources propping up any paper in decline. From day one, America operated in a monetary chaos. One central currency plus 13 state currencies, none backed by taxes or metal, both layers kept printing. By 1781, one continental dollar was worth just 1 cent. State currencies were sliding toward collapse as well. With continental currency dead and no central government capable of finance, America was forced into fiscal fragmentation as each state struggled to avert its own collapse. Beyond basic government expenses, war debts were enormous. Interest payments didn't disappear just because the war was over. So states turned to the only tool left, issuing massive amounts of state bonds. But state bonds were still mutually unrecognized. Massachusetts wouldn't accept New York's bonds. New York wouldn't accept Pennsylvania's bonds. Nobody believed other states wouldn't eventually default. Because bonds could only be sold within each state, the funding pool was extremely small. In such a thin market, even modest selling pressure crushed prices, leaving states unable to raise enough cash to cover old debts. The funding gap kept growing. Once investors tried to resell state bonds, there were no other buyers. Prices could only fall. Falling prices signaled that the bonds no longer held their value. New bonds became almost impossible to sell. To attract buyers, states were forced to raise interest rates. But higher interest only increased the risk of default, making investors even more distrustful. Final result, states couldn't pay interest on time. From 1785 to 1788, multiple states went into de facto default, forced restructurings. America wasn't 13 states anymore. It was 13 simultaneously failing mini-kingdoms, each holding worthless debt promises nobody else would touch. George Washington understood the reality of the moment clearly, a shadow nation sustained by luck and empty promises. And this is the critical realization that led to what came next. If America didn't unify its finances, America would cease to exist. The Constitution of 1787 rebuilt fiscal sovereignty across 3 dimensions. First dimension, taxation rights transfer to federal government. For the first time in American history, Congress gained the power to levy federal taxes directly on individuals and businesses, creating a national revenue base. States kept local taxes for local functions, law enforcement, local administration, infrastructure, but national-level debt and national credit would now be supported exclusively by federal taxation. Second dimension, monetary rights transfer to federal government. State currencies outlawed. The Constitution explicitly prohibited states from issuing bills of credit, vesting monetary authority exclusively in the federal government. This laid the legal foundation for a future unified currency system, the dollar. Third dimension, debt rights transfer to federal government. The federal government can borrow on the credit of the United States. States cannot block it. Federal debt gained absolute priority over state debt. The federal government became the only entity legally authorized to borrow on behalf of America as a whole. This wasn't just political restructuring. This was building the legal infrastructure for what had to come next, unifying the 13 broken state debts into one national debt. The Constitution solved the authority and responsibility problem, but not the problem of how existing war debts would actually be paid. 13 states still carried massive war debts in various states of collapse. The constitutional framework was in place. taxation, money, and debt. But the framework was empty. America had built the skeleton of a fiscal state, but it had no muscle, no blood, no operational capacity. By 1787, the machinery existed, but only on paper. One man understood exactly what needed to happen. His name was Alexander Hamilton, and in 1790, he would execute the most radical financial operation in history, turning America's greatest weakness into the foundation of a superpower. In the next episode, how Alexander Hamilton turned broken state debts into the cement of the Union, how he built the machinery that made the Constitution actually work, and how America became the world's first nation created by debt. Thanks for watching. This is the Fiscal Ledger, decoding the systems we still live under. The modern world wasn't born in a moment. It was engineered over centuries by capital, law, and design. From medieval credit to modern markets, Europe and North America wrote the operating code of power, and we're still running on it.